everyone, and welcome to another mock video. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I am excited to be sharing with you one of my very first attempts at a full diorama build for one of my LEGO characters. I call this one the Wastelander, and unfortunately it is a bit tall for my filming setup, so please forgive the bits that are out of frame. Before I get into the finer details of this build, allow me to first give some background for the setting. In my LEGO world, the year is 2127, and the majority of the human population is densely packed into massive, multi-level cyberpunk cities spread across the globe, while the land between those cities is mostly barren desert filled with the ruins of the old world. Despite its inhospitality, there are more than a few people who choose the quiet tranquility of the wasteland over the constant noise and rampant crime and pollution of the cities. They often make a meager living by salvaging and reselling the abundant scrap metal that can be found there. The Wastelander is one such individual, and today I'll be taking you on a little tour through his homestead. The first thing you will notice, and the whole reason this build doesn't fit properly onto my backdrop, is this large, for LEGO, radio tower. It was actually here before the Wastelander came along, and is in fact the reason he decided to set up his homestead in this location, since it means he's able to keep in communication with the rest of the world despite his relative isolation, not to mention being a nice focal point for me to structure the rest of this build around. Moving down to the ground, we will first take a look at the Wastelander's workspace, consisting of this rather ramshackle-looking structure where he stores his many tools, as well as his small workbench where he repairs, refurbishes, and restores many of the quote-unquote treasures he finds in the wasteland. With the titular Wastelander removed, we can get a better look at his rather eclectic collection of stuff. He's got one big bin just overflowing with scrap, a few containers holding some tools, as well as a small toolbox. There's a small can of what I like to think is polish, and also a large rolling tool cabinet with a little radio so he can listen to some tunes while he works. I'm especially proud of this welding kit set on a handcart. Here's a look at it by itself, as well as another look at the tool cabinet, since I'm pretty proud of that as well. Around the back, you can see a pair of containers set up for collecting rain to be used as drinking water, a large air compressor sitting behind the welding kit, and a small row of solar panels that supply the radio tower with electricity. One thing the Wastelander is especially fond of are old street signs from the distant past. You can see one displayed proudly here next to an even older advertisement for a now ancient gas station, easily some of his most prized possessions. Up next is this large, round, green and orange thing. It was actually meant to be some kind of intermodal shipping container for transporting liquid, but of course the Wastelander has salvaged and repurposed it to be his living quarters. Nothing fancy here, basically just a roof over his head. Around the back, an air conditioning unit has been crudely affixed to keep things comfortable inside. And in this corner there is a small fuel container connected by a hose to keep the place running. Shout out to my girlfriend for that idea. You may also notice another small resident who's made the area beneath the Wastelander's home a home of his own. Ooh. Coming back around the front, we can see a small ladder leading up to the access hatch. And with that open, we can get our first glance at some of the details inside. Luckily, the entire pod is easy to remove, so we can get a better look at it all by itself. In addition to the access hatch, the whole front face is also able to be opened to allow us access to the interior. As you can see, it's pretty cramped inside, and I imagine the Wastelander doesn't actually spend much time in here when he's not sleeping, unless he has to. There's his bed with a small light above, a bedside table with a few bottles of water, one of them appears to be empty, and a coffee mug, because this is LEGO after all. Next to his table there is what's meant to be a strong box containing any valuables he may have, and another table with a monitor that features a radar display to let him know if anyone is approaching his property. Beneath the table are various dried rations, and above, mounted on a rack, is his rifle, which he uses for hunting. Also, with the pod removed, we can get a better look at the struts it was sitting on. There's nothing particularly fancy about them, but I do like how they look. Ooh. Stepping back outside, the last area for us to look at is what I like to think of as the Wastelander's leisure space. After a long day's work, the Wastelander will come out here to sit and relax, maybe look at the stars if the sky is clear enough. Firewood is scarce in the desert, so instead he has a small electric heater to keep him warm. You can see he also has a pot for cooking food, and apparently doesn't mind having a nightcap after a long day. That's alright, I suppose he's earned it. But by far the most important part of this area is his garden box. This is something he actually does purely for his own enjoyment. Vegetation of any kind is rare to come by in the wasteland, so it has become a hobby of his to try and get something, anything green to grow. It may only be a few random weeds so far, but it's still more plant life than you'll find for miles in any other direction. Despite his solitary lifestyle, the Wastelander is not alone out in the bush. His robotic companion Rusty is very helpful when it comes to carrying large bits of scrap that would normally be much too heavy for just one man. Rusty can also be converted into a small mech to be piloted by the Wastelander should he ever need to catch a ride somewhere beyond walking distance. And that's going to do it for the Wastelander's homestead. Thank you so much if you've stuck around this far. I hope you enjoyed this little tour, and I hope you'll stick around for more MOC videos because more are well on the way. I've been Mindbender, and I will talk to you later.